what's going on, guys? It's David here from Genzio. We are in Denver, Colorado for ETHDenver. I'm with Michael from Hibachi, and we just spoke about Hibachi and everything they have going on, how they're making it intuitive for people who are outside of the space, their new activation, and what they're doing to make the space a little bit more accessible for users outside. I hope you enjoy the interview, and I look forward to hearing what your thoughts are. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's David here from Genzio. We are in Denver, Colorado for ETHDenver. I'm with Michael from Hibachi. Michael,
Hello.
How are you doing, brother?
Doing well. How are you, man?
Good. I'm good. It's been a good day, very active. What is this, day 3,
Yeah.
I believe? Things have been going well. And for yourself?
Doing well. Yeah, it all just kind of blends together.
It does, yeah.
It's good. Yeah, very active. We've kind of been debating, is it a bull or bear conference?
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the middle.
So actually, this is my first ETHDenver.
Okay.
And I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about it. Like, it seems a little more relaxed, and then some people are saying it's very hectic. What do you think?
I think it's in the middle. I mean, usually you kind of have the bull-bear kind of cycle. So in the bull, all the traders show up and everybody wants to get their alpha and all the crazy campaigns will happen. And then in the bear, it's just tech, right? It's just people talking about their projects and the fundamentals. And I think we're kind of in between. There's a little this, a little that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. And how many times have you been to Denver in general, outside
Like 4
of
or 5
Denver?
times.
Okay, nice. And are you enjoying the city?
It's good. It's a good city. It's a good mix of things. Yeah, I like it.
It is. Cool, man, cool. Hibachi.
Yes.
So now I have already spoken with Thibaut.
Yes.
And I know quite a bit about you guys. Fantastic project.
Well, thank you.
And I know, the origin of the name and everything. I love it. It's so, creative, and it's perfect. But I want to hear a little bit more about your perspective and, your journey as well. So why don't we start with your journey?
Sure. How far back you want me to go?
Oh, how far you want to go?
Well, for the sake of brevity, I'll kind of start with my transition into the industry. So I was at Facebook kind of doing the big tech thing, working on whatever big tech works on. And I kind of thought, that wasn't really going anywhere. Everything was going great for me, but I just thought I was in the wrong industry, in the wrong place. And so I kind of switched over, worked at Hash a little bit, and then started Hibachi with Thibaut. And so now we're here.
Nice, man, nice. And now what does it mean to you, Hibachi?
Hibachi? I think it's really about, all of crypto to me, right? It's new technology unlocking new experiences, right? So if you think about the internet or a technology like that, right? There's the actual tech, there's the networking, there's all that. But really the meaningful thing is the applications that you can build with that, right? And so for me, Hibachi, it's all about how do we build something that how can we use the new technology to build a superior product rather than just something that is kind of interesting on a technical level, but maybe not as applicable. And so I think a lot of that is really about trying to figure out what's the limiting factor, what's the constraint right now on products, on experiences. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is really just comes down to speed and latency and not the ability or the inability to deliver an application that would be as good as something that you can get in a centralized exchange. And I think a lot of the industry is kind of that. It's that fight between, you could get something that's more secure, but it's usually not a better experience. And so to me, Hibachi is really about taking on the big guys long term and how do we build something that is at that same level of experience, ideally even better, right? Without compromising on safety and security.
Okay. And how important is safety and security?
Well, nobody cares about it until you get hacked, right? So
right.
that's always a problem.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
I didn't lose it. I left it, and it's located, and everything's fine. I left my phone and my laptop in Spain, and I'll tell you what, I didn't realize how important the whole 2FA is until now. Because I couldn't get into any of my stuff until I went and got a new phone, re-registered my number, until they could send me an SMS. It's important. So I want to know, how important is it to you guys?
I think it's, exchanges are weird because you don't go to an exchange because you want to be safe, usually, right? You go there because you want to have an exciting experience, creating fun products, right? But safety can undermine that, right? So FTX, it's great until it crashes. Bybit, right? So to be on topic, it's great until they get hacked, and I think it's kind of like that, where you're, as a user, you have this doubt maybe at the back of your mind where it's like, yeah, I can use this, but are they going to lose my money at some point? Mm-hmm. And until you hit that point, it's not that important. Once you do, it matters, right? And so I think fortunately and unfortunately, we've had a few examples on the last few years of what can happen with centralized exchanges. And I think from a user perspective, if I ask people, if you had the exact same experience as FTX and all the things that you wanted, but it was safe, would you use that or would you use FTX? And I think everybody wants to use the better alternative. So I don't think really it's that people don't like safety. It's that if you force the user to pick between something that is a good experience and something that is safer, they're probably going to go to the good experience, which is why centralized exchanges are like 10 times, 100 times bigger than the decentralized industry. And so I think of it as our job as the industry, right, to build experiences and products at that level that's ideally even better than that, right? So users don't have to make that compromise.
Okay, nice, man. Now, what has separated you guys from other projects?
Well, there's a few ways to spin it, but I would say
spin it up.
Spin it up?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few spins, but I think fundamentally the biggest difference is, I'll probably take some heat for this, but I would say we're not ideologically fundamentalist, right? So we're not waking up every day saying everything needs to be on chain, and this is, how it should be.
Yeah.
The focus is how do we build the best experience for the users, as safe as possible, as good as possible, right? And in reality, you're always going to have to make some trade-offs. And so the main idea and technology behind Hibachi are zero-knowledge proofs, right? And so you basically get the exact same experience in terms of speed and just performance as you would in a centralized exchange, but then you use zero-knowledge proofs to settle, and the end result is you get safety, right? And the trade-off here, from a user's perspective, is that your transactions, you're not going to see them on the chain until they go through, right? So if you go to your bank account, you're going to have a bunch of transactions that show up in like the pending section. They're part of your balance. They've already kind of happened. They haven't been finalized yet, right? And so the trade-off is, well, why don't we take that same approach, but use, cryptographic technology to settle things and do so quickly? And so as a user, the trade-off you're making is not much, right? If the exchange ever goes down, what would happen is you'll go back to where things were 5 minutes ago, the same way that if for some reason, your credit card transaction fails to settle, you're back to, where you were before. But as long as we never get to that state, you don't really feel it as a user, right? You just trade, you just get all the upside, and the trade-offs are kind of made in a way where you don't really feel them. And I think that's the approach behind Hibachi. And I think there's it sounds kind of abstract, but there's a lot of very concrete differences in the product experience that you're going to have that maybe separate us from how other people would be thinking about building an exchange.
For sure. Okay, it makes sense. Yeah. Now, for people like that maybe never really dove into this, right? Mm-hmm. How intuitive is it for outside users, normies, for example?
Well, it's an interesting question. We're not quite at normie focused yet. It's not because I don't like normies.
And now do we want to be?
Yes, eventually. But at the end of the day, the industry where it is right now, it's very pro focused, right? So you really want to, in the beginning, build a product for pro traders. It's a pattern you'll see with a lot of companies, right? Like Tesla started out building very high-end cars, and then eventually you kind of work your way down the value chain, and you get something that's the everyman product. And so we want to get there. For now, we're really focused on the pro trader. Now, what's interesting, to me at least, is a pro trader doesn't really need to be somebody who's incredibly crypto savvy and has like 18 different wallets and like all of that, right? But they do know how to use a more complicated product with advanced pro features, right? And so the trade-off right now is, as we're building things, we always want it to be the simplest experience possible, but it's going to have to be as complex as what we're offering, right? And so we're offering really complex pro products like we do right now. We can still have the simplest pro product, but it's a pro product, right? And over time, we're going to extend that same philosophy to building more and more everyday features, right? And that's kind of, I think, maybe I'll leave it at there for now.
No, and the reason why I ask is because like all of this is so exciting, right? Even being here at ETHDenver, everyone's building, trailblazing, and we're true pioneers to this space. And it seems as if the way that if we want all of this to get to where we want it to be, it needs to become a way that people can do it without thinking that they're doing it on blockchain, for example.
Exactly.
And so it's always something I like to ask, right?
I would say on that point, we've taken a lot of care into trying to figure out how do we abstract away that experience. And the end result is, if you're somebody who really cares about full decentralization and you have custody of your keys, then you can use Hibachi that way. And you just connect your wallet and your on-chain interactions are minimal. You deposit, you withdraw, and then everything else is the same as it would be. But maybe you don't want to do it that way. Maybe you care about convenience. And so we put a lot of attention into making sure that we have like a Web2 login and an experience that is basically, I'll call it like the Coinbase experience or the Binance experience, where you just log in with an email, you have a 2FA, you send some funds, and we put a lot of care into making sure these are both first-class citizens, and you can use the product either way, and you shouldn't really need to think about the chain, right? And so from a user perspective, if you're using it email-based, the only time you ever really notice the chain right now is when you deposit and when you withdraw, right?
Okay.
And it's kind of the same way as if you use Coinbase.
Yeah.
If you send funds from a wallet, that's your kind of interaction with the blockchain. Once it's on the exchange, everything else should be abstracted away from you, and you just care about the actual trading.
Yeah. All right, and one thing that just sparked me immediately is like, can everyone use Hibachi? Is it totally global? Are there countries that you cannot?
Well, pretty much global. I think.
I mean, I know there's ways to get around it, but
which we don't condone.
No, absolutely not.
But yes, unless you're in North Korea or Iran or the United States of America.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of brings us to where we are right now as the industry, right? It's like we're here in Denver.
Yeah.
We're proud patriots, or at least I am. But
I am too.
Perfect. 2 patriots. And at the end of the day,
go Seahawks.
Go Seahawks, yes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we can't offer these products in the US right now because the regulatory regime is not caught up yet. And that makes me very sad. And I think the optimistic angle here is that I think that's changing very soon. Yeah. And so hopefully next time we sit down, my answer is going to be a little different.
For sure, man. And what do you think we need to do to help that?
I think trust is pretty important, right? Like if right now, I think a lot of times the industry gets pointed with this broad brush of it's all a bunch of scams and like dubious exchanges in like foreign islands, and the truth is that's not the case, right? Yeah. We're forced to take certain strategies on a regulatory side because there's no good way to operate in the U.S. right now. Yeah. But at the end of the day, right, we're just trying to build applications that people want to use. And it's much more profitable to build a great product that people use and come back every day than to have a scam, right? And so I think it's on us to show that we actually care about building good products, we care about trust, we care about not losing users' funds. And I think it's going to make the people in power a little bit more easy or comfortable, move in this direction where there's a pathway to offer these products in a safe and compliant way in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, that's kind of a hurdle. It truly is.
Yes.
What are some other hurdles that you guys have faced in your journey, right? Like, you really build something really beautiful and something I admire myself, right? Because, you're saying you want to help people, right? What are some hurdles that you've had to face?
Well, there's a lot, right? I think every day it's really challenging to build something that is really performant, but also really good user experience and also gives you these like the guarantees and trustlessness that you want, right? Sure. And so you're constantly moving things around in these different domains. You're trying to figure out what experiences do we abstract, but every time you abstract something, it might become confusing to the user because there's stuff that's happening under the hood. So it's a lot of back and forth and, late nights trying to figure out what's the right way to build this product. And so I think the biggest challenge right now holding us back or holding the industry back is probably, I would say, the lack of similar to not quite regulatory, but the other regulatory, which is the big tech angle, right? And that's Apple and Google, and more so Apple, honestly. And the problem is you can't really offer any apps, right? Yeah. For crypto companies. If you want to go through the App Store, there's companies that do it. They go through a lot of pain, and then as soon as you do anything remotely, like depositing fiat in the app, immediately there's like 30% cut, or like it just gets jing. Yeah. It just gets just gets cut right away. And so I think that's a big hurdle, because if you think about whether it's Robinhood, right, and how they became popular, or even just any other application these days, everything is mobile first, except for crypto, right? And so we've had a lot of arguments about that, and I'm curious what your perspective is, but I don't think it is because people hate mobile and crypto. I think it's because we're forced to use web because these platforms are gatekeepers. And for
sure. No, I mean, if you want to ask me, I'll tell you what. I think it's people being scared to want to understand the benefits, the difference, right? Like I think about my mother, for example, or my father, right? Like they're two people who probably could benefit from blockchain and crypto and everything, and that's why I always ask, like I asked before, like how can we make it intuitive for people that that don't need to know necessarily what they're doing, but because it's inevitable that it's coming, right? Like people will begin to use this with or without their knowledge of it. And I think that the biggest hurdle for it all is the people being scared of the unknown.
Yes.
And not knowing what they're getting themselves into. That trust. It goes back into trust, like you were saying. And so that's what I would say it is for me. Not the unknown. And so that's why, I like I said before, like that's why I always ask, like, how can we make it so we can do it without the unknown being need to be known?
I mean, honestly, I think wallets are a big problem, right? Okay. And I know it's going to get clipped out of context.
Who knows?
And wallets are great on some domains. I think the fundamentals is very good that you can have self-custody.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think that's the right model for most people, right? Like, you and I might be able to, like, figure out what a seed phrase is and, like, get used to these concepts. My dad is not going to.
No,
right?
Neither is mine. Neither is mine.
No matter how much like we try to build around it and like add emojis, he's also not going to remember his emoji seed phrase, right? That's not. And so I think we're going down the wrong road here when it's trying to make these like very complicated experiences more educationally attainable. And I think every time I have this saying when I talk to the team and we're talking about do we put a hint here or do we explain how this thing works and we have hints in the product, but my line is every explanation is an error, right? Because it means you've built it in a way that you need to explain.
You need to explain. Yeah.
Now, again, that's a dogmatic view, right? In reality, in practice, sometimes you need to explain certain things. But I think the goal is not keep explaining more and more and more stuff, right? And so I don't think the idea is take a wallet and just keep adding stuff around it. It's abstract away the experience, right? And so what I think really we're probably going to move to, and we saw this with the internet, right? It's you need to build products that handhold a little bit and do things for the user, right? And then some people are still going to want to do stuff themselves. Sure. And I think that's very important. It's good to support that, and it keeps everything grounded, right? So if I think about us as an exchange, right, we have this Web2 login, we have the wallet login, right? And I want to make sure that both of them are supported. I would love to get to a place where Web2 is like 90% of the usage, but I really also want the other 10%. And it's not because it's at a very fundamental level, as long as we have these wallet users, it means the exchange needs to run in a way that is completely provable, decentralized, and trustless, right? Yeah. So as long as there's a single user left that can use it in the wallet mode, and we support that, it keeps it safer for everybody else, right? But that doesn't mean you can't abstract things. So I think a lot of times where the industry gets hung up is just because you should technically have the ability to do everything yourself doesn't mean that everybody's going to have to do that, right? You should still offer abstractions and convenience. Convenience is not a bad word, right?
No.
I think once it's the only option and it becomes opaque and it requires trust, you start to get into the problem. It starts to become a problem. But I think we're probably going to end up with this two-tier system, right, where you want to build applications that can kind of seamlessly work either way. And the majority of people, if you think about the industry right now, right, new people that are joining, it's not people who are more crypto savvy, right? It's shifting towards the center. It's becoming more and more and more normie. Mm-hmm. And every year, every bit that like every regulation that passes, it's only going to be more regular people like my dad and your dad who are going to eventually join this industry, right? And so they're going to want experiences that are convenient, that are abstracted, which doesn't mean that we abandon everything that where we came from. Yeah, I think it's really important to still maintain that. Sure. But I think that's where people get caught up a lot. I don't think my dad wants to be on Sui chain with some like wallet. I think he just wants to trade. Right?
Neither does mine. Yeah. Neither does mine. Yeah. No, for sure. Now, is there anything specific that you guys have coming out that you'd like to announce?
I think I'll let the Twitter do the talking.
All right, good. Yeah. Now, I actually have another question as well. You had mentioned Web2, okay? Yeah. Now, us specifically, we have witnessed this, it's this inevitable wave that Web2 is slowly going to start to have to adapt into Web3. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen, this bridge. Yeah. I want to hear your take on that, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think you have this quite a lot, where you have an established technology and an approach of doing things, then you have the newcomer, right? Uh-huh. And usually both of those approaches have some fundamental merit, as much as neither side wants to admit it, right? Yeah. And so what ends up happening is either the new thing evolves into the old thing, or the old thing evolves into the new thing. And so the metaphor here that I would use is like, either Tesla can become Mercedes or Mercedes becomes Tesla, right? That was like the statement 5 years ago,
Damn.
right? So I think the race for us is like, are these decentralized exchanges, is Hibachi going to become Coinbase and then eventually Chase, right? Or is Chase going to become Hibachi? And I think they're both going to be working in different directions, and it's really going to come down to what is the most compelling user experience that you can deliver. And I think that will influence the way things go.
Damn, man. Okay, lovely. Now, any insight to any of our listeners from your perspective of, outside of the space, I want to get involved in the space?
It's a great question. I would say, I think there's a lot of exciting things that are being built. If you are comfortable with kind of going on the deep end, there's a whole world out there, right? If maybe you're just kind of, you want to check things out slowly. And this is not investment advice, but for me personally, I was always curious, and it was really only once I bought Bitcoin that I became more mentally invested, right? So I don't know. This is not investment advice, but maybe buy like a little bit, like $100, and there's something that happens psychologically when you move from being a bystander to being involved in the space, right? And like when I bought Bitcoin, I still didn't really I knew the abstracts, but I didn't really know much about crypto, and it kind of forced me to start doing more research and learning.
Well, I feel like you put that stake in there, right? Like you're not gonna not want to know more. Now that you have a little bit of skin in there, you're not gonna not want to indulge, and learn a little bit, educate yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
Again, not investment advice.
No, not at all. Now, Michael, where can we follow you guys?
Yeah, just go to hibachi.xyz, or Twitter or Discord, Telegram. Yeah, we're building. I think we're just getting started. A lot of exciting stuff on the roadmap that we'll be announcing soon, and it'll be good to see all of you there.
Yeah, and that's right. The shout out, you're going to find it out on Twitter.
Yes.
On X, excuse me.
X, dead naming.
Cool. Michael, it was such a pleasure meeting you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Brought to you by Hedera and Foresight Ventures.
Hey, what's up?
But it's not something Genzio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a house.
No, we do not understand that we do not want. Ladies and gentlemen.
We're back at the Genzio Media House.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today.